Hello, good evening, and welcome back. It was only a matter of time before these stories were brought to light from the legacy media, and here we see LA police officers shot in so-called ambush. And I'm not sure if ambush is quite the correct word, as it was police who were parked up, as you'd expect. And then somebody, seen here, walks up behind the police vehicle as if they're just going to walk past the police vehicle, and instead pull out a pistol and shoot several rounds into the vehicle, putting both police officers in a critical condition. And this is what the police are calling an ambush, as if they were sent there for the sole purpose of that to happen. And this is surely just to be expected, that if you see people saying that all police are bastards and defund the police and systemic racism and all these lies, which are fruitless and not helpful at all, then of course you're going to get people reacting this way. It's just an extension of the previous lies that we've seen. And whenever you dehumanize the enemy, then you're going to be performing very depraved acts on them. It is just a fact of history, unfortunately, that when you no longer think of people as people, but instead think of them as animals or insects or dogs, then chances are you'll be far more willing to commit depraved acts upon them and not treat them with the respect that they deserve, being a human. Especially in examples of law enforcement here. Now, sure, there are concerns with law enforcement, but that's mainly from the top and not from the bottom. Most of these problems, especially if you say that they're systemic, are not bottom up, they are top down. In which case, if you do have that much rage with the rules, with the system, then your best bet is to take out the people at the top, not the people at the bottom. But, this is what Tim Pool mentions so much as well, that the people who are in charge of the groups that would cause this kind of response don't really care about who gets in trouble furthering the cause. They are going to feign innocence and try to get out of any consequences in any way that they can, while they will happily throw other people under the bus because they don't care. That's those other people that they don't give a shit about, and they're furthering the cause, and they will say, oh yeah, definitely do this, and no, nothing bad will come to you, despite knowing full well that, yes, there will be legal consequences for what they're doing. The people pulling the strings behind this are aware of that, whether that be Black Lives Matter or Antifa, but I repeat myself. And leading to something like this, with not only the rhetoric, but then also the actual encouragement, whether it be financially or logistically, then of course this will come about. And personally, I am a free speech absolutist, which I would say could even include the incitement to violence, as you might see here, to say, go do that thing, as in go hurt that person, because the person who decides to listen to that and take you up on that is actually the one responsible. Otherwise, you're saying, well, these people cannot be held responsible for their own actions, and surely then that is just the soft bigotry of low expectations. You're not blaming the person who's done it, you're blaming the person who said it in the first place. Which is a very difficult line to draw. That yes, of course, that would encourage people to commit violence, but at the same time, how are you going to decide if it's incitement, or maybe it's a joke, or it's too ambiguous? If you were to say, hey, I'm not saying go attack this person, but I understand why they would be attacked, then where do you draw the line there? And if you're concerned about low-informed or low-intelligence people taking on these acts because they think that is what their leaders want them to do, then trying to have a distinction there where what I just said would be legal doesn't really help. In which case, Why? But, of course, these things will happen. And you cannot stop these things from happening. That freedom has consequences. Of course it does. If you're free, so you don't have tyrannical rule, then there are going to be consequences as well of the unpredictable nature. Of course, if you had tyrannical rule, then there would be unforeseen consequences there as well. So it seems to be the lesser of the two evils. But there are still evils. Let's not forget that. And that this will happen. And the person responsible is the person who shot the police officers. Definitely, wholeheartedly, completely. Anybody who encouraged the rioting, the looting, the attacking of law enforcement definitely did also encourage this happening. And there were definitely people who are happy that it's happened. Given that almost 40 US police officers were killed in the line of duty in 2020, that's more than unarmed black men per year. Funny that. As FBI statistics show, and 8 of them were victims of an ambush. Protesters shouted anti-police slogans and blocked the entrance to the emergency room where the 2 officers are being treated, police and witnesses said. So the anti-police rhetoric, the feeling has become so ingrained and severe that the police officers have undergone surgery and are in a critical condition and recovering at the hospital, so thankfully they haven't died, at least not yet. Male and female, 24-year-old and 31-year-old, respectively. They are in critical condition, they are recovering, and yet the protesters decide to block the entrance and exit for emergency room, for any ambulance trying to then get other victims seen to. They're now also being impeded. So what's the idea behind this? That they're trying to say that, yeah, they want the law enforcement officers to die, right, which is dreadful, and they seem to have misaligned values with, or misaligned statements with the values that they actually hold, but I doubt they've looked into it that far of the importance of law enforcement, as they're always the first to call for police when somebody does something they don't like. They are still the authoritarians, let's not forget that irony and cognitive dissonance that's going on there. But with their actions, they're then stopping other people from getting help. Surely, if they were trying to stop the police officers from getting help, then they should be in the hospital interrupting the surgeons, I presume, or just contaminating all the surgery tools so that they can't be used and contaminating the clean rooms. Then surely that would be more direct. But no, instead they're stopping emergency vehicles from reaching the hospital for people who had absolutely nothing to do with it whatsoever. And chances are, if the suspect was caught in a firefight, then that criminal would be rushed to the hospital as well, in which case they would be stopped from receiving the emergency treatment they need because of the protesters. So even then, really doesn't make any sense. So LA County sheriffs tweeted out, to the protesters blocking the entrance and exit of the hospital emergency room, yelling, "We hope they die," referring to 2 LA sheriffs ambushed today in Compton, "Do not block emergency exits and entries and exits to the hospital. People's lives are at stake when ambulances can't get through." All they're coming to address, they're trying to rise above it. Okay, speaking of rise above it, we've got Donald Trump tweeting, "These are animals that must be hit hard." And yes, it comes back to the dehumanizing aspect of it that I said before. Yes, it does. Thankfully, this isn't a group of people with unalienable characteristics or easy to pick out, but instead it's violent criminals attacking law enforcement, if you wish to try and bring it into a group, in which case I think that's fair enough. Violent criminals who are trying to attack law enforcement, yeah, I think we can agree that that group is bad. Fair enough. Should they still have human rights? Yes, they should. Should they still then face legal prosecution and not vigilante justice? Yes, of course they should. So, still wary about that, but okay. Whereas Joe Biden was saying that this cold-blooded shooting is unconscionable, and the perpetrator must be brought to justice. Violence of any kind is wrong. Those who commit it should be caught and punished. More lengthy, more vague, trying to appeal to everybody, and of course, as now actually trying to say that, yeah, people who attack police should be punished, which seems to be a bit of a 180 of what he was saying before. But I guess that getting this close to the election and seeing what Don Lemon has said about, well, the polls don't seem to like us doing this, we're going to have to change our tack. That it's not about morals and values and ethics, it's just about power grabs. But I guess we knew that for a while. But this situation is exactly what you would expect to happen when there was so much encouragement to riot, to loot, to destroy property, to attack police, to devalue the work that law enforcement does. This is what you can expect to happen. And legacy media encouraging these riots and disparaging the police is only going to stoke that fire. So maybe they should look at where their priorities are and where their allegiances lay. But as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. And until next time, have a good one.